Imagine making a decision only to realize it was influenced by a hidden mental shortcut you didn't even know existed. This is the realm of cognitive biases, and it's far more pervasive than you might think. Take the Dunning-Kruger effect, for example. This fascinating bias causes individuals with low ability at a task to overestimate their ability, creating a false sense of confidence. Intriguing, isn't it? Let's delve deeper into these biases that shape our thinking and decision-making. Ever found yourself only accepting information that aligns with your beliefs? That's confirmation bias at work. Now let's unwrap this concept a bit more. Picture this. You are a detective of your own thoughts, ideas, and beliefs. You're investigating a case, but instead of looking at all the evidence objectively, you're only interested in the clues that support your initial conviction. This, my friends, is the essence of confirmation bias. We all do it, whether we realize it or not. We tend to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore or downplay information that contradicts them. Say you believe that cats are smarter than dogs. You'll likely pay more attention to articles touting feline intelligence and dismiss those praising canine smarts. It's not that you're being dishonest or ignorant. It's just that your brain finds comfort in affirmation. But why does confirmation bias happen? Well, scientists believe it's tied to our desire for cognitive consistency. Our brains like to keep things simple and in harmony. So, when we encounter information that aligns with our views, it's like a warm, comforting blanket for our minds. On the other hand, information that challenges our beliefs feels threatening, like a sudden cold shower. Not so pleasant, right? However, as comforting as it might be, confirmation bias can lead us astray. It can skew our understanding of the world around us, cloud our judgment, and sway our decisions. For example, in the world of finance, an investor might ignore warning signs about a risky investment because they're too focused on its potential rewards. Confirmation bias can also reinforce stereotypes and prejudice. If you hold a negative view about a particular group of people, you're more likely to notice instances that confirm this view and overlook those that disprove it. This can lead to a distorted perception of reality and perpetuate harmful biases. In the grand scheme of things, we need to be aware of confirmation bias and strive to challenge our own beliefs. We should seek diverse perspectives and consider all evidence before making a conclusion. It's not always easy to do, but it's crucial for making informed, unbiased decisions. Confirmation bias, a reassuring yet deceptive cognitive shortcut. Ever jump to conclusions based on information that readily comes to mind? That's the availability heuristic. This cognitive bias can be a tricky little thing, subtly guiding our decisions without us even realizing it. So what is the availability heuristic? It's a mental shortcut that relies on immediate examples that spring to mind when we evaluate a certain topic or make a decision. It's like reaching into your mental pantry and grabbing the first ingredient you see. It's not necessarily the best or the most accurate, but it's right there at your fingertips. Take this scenario, for instance. You're deciding whether to take a flight or drive for your next vacation. Images of high-profile plane crashes flash across your mind, and suddenly, driving seems safer, right? That's the availability heuristic at work. In reality, statistics show that you're far more likely to be involved in a car accident than a plane crash. But those dramatic, widely reported plane crashes are more readily available in your memory, influencing your decision. Or consider the fear of shark attacks when swimming in the ocean. The chance of experiencing such an event is incredibly low. But thanks to movies like Jaws and sensationalized media reports, the image of a shark attack is readily available in our minds, making us perceive it as a more common risk than it truly is. The availability heuristic can also play a role in problem solving. Suppose you're trying to fix a technical issue with your computer. You might immediately try the solution that worked last time, even if it's not the most effective for the current problem. Why? Because that solution is readily available in your memory. Now, the availability heuristic isn't all bad. It helps us make quick decisions when we don't have time to analyze all the information, but it's important to recognize its influence. It can lead us to overestimate the likelihood of dramatic events, or make decisions based on incomplete information. So the next time you find yourself reaching for that readily available piece of information, take a moment. Ask yourself, is this the best ingredient for my decision, or just the most accessible one? Availability heuristic, a bias leading us to base decisions on easily accessible information. Ever noticed how the first piece of information you encounter influences your decision-making? That's anchoring bias. Imagine you're at a flea market and you spot a vintage lamp you absolutely adore. The seller tells you it's priced at £50. That 50, my friend, becomes your anchor. You start bargaining from that point, even though the lamp might only be worth 30. That's how anchoring bias works. It's the reliance on the first piece of information, or the anchor, when making decisions. Anchoring bias isn't limited to flea markets, though. It's everywhere. Think about salary negotiations. Your employer offers you a starting salary, and that becomes your anchor. You negotiate around that figure, often overlooking the fact that you might be worth more. It's not just about money either. Anchoring bias can influence our estimations and predictions as well. If you're told that the average temperature in July is usually 25 degrees Celsius, that becomes your anchor. You estimate future temperatures based on this information, even if the weather patterns are changing. So how can we overcome this bias? By being aware of it. Recognize when you're anchoring and make an effort to consider other relevant information. Don't let the first piece of information dictate your decision. Take a step back, gather more data, and then decide. Anchoring bias, a cognitive shortcut that makes first impressions count. Ever overestimated your abilities or the accuracy of your beliefs? That's overconfidence bias. A fascinating phenomenon. Overconfidence bias is the tendency to overestimate one's own skills, talents, or the precision of one's predictions. It's the belief that we're better, smarter, or more capable than we actually are. It's the illusion of superiority. Let's take a moment to explore some everyday examples. Picture a driver who firmly believes they have exceptional reflexes and can text while driving. Or an investor who, confident in their market predictions, puts all their savings into a single stock. Both are clear instances of overconfidence bias. At first glance, a little confidence seems harmless, even beneficial. After all, it can inspire bold actions and motivate us to tackle challenges head-on. However, the danger lies in the disconnect between our perceived abilities and reality. When we overestimate our capabilities, we often underestimate the risks involved, leading to hasty, ill-informed decisions. Consider a student who, confident in their mastery of a subject, decides to skip studying for an important exam. They may believe they'll ace the test, but when the results come in, they find themselves falling short of expectations. Or think about a seasoned entrepreneur who, convinced of their business acumen, launches a new venture without proper market research, only to see it fail. These examples illustrate the potential pitfalls of overconfidence bias. It can lead to overestimation of success, underestimation of risks, and ultimately, poor decision-making. It's a subtle yet powerful bias that can cloud our judgment and drive us to take unnecessary risks. How can we mitigate the effects of overconfidence bias? Awareness is the first step. By recognizing this bias in ourselves, we can make a conscious effort to question our assumptions, seek feedback, and make more informed decisions. It's about balancing confidence with humility and understanding that we're not infallible. So, the next time you're feeling exceptionally confident about a decision or a belief, take a moment to check in with yourself. Could overconfidence bias be at play? Overconfidence bias, a deceptive bias that can lead to unexpected pitfalls. Ever felt that an event was predictable only after it occurred? That's hindsight bias. Welcome to the world of hindsight bias, a fascinating cognitive quirk that often leaves us under the illusion that the past was more predictable than it actually was. This bias, also known as the knew-it-all-along effect, can make us believe that we knew the outcome of an event before it happened, even when that's not the case. Let's bring this concept to life with a simple example. Imagine you've just watched a thrilling football match that ended with a surprising twist. Now, you might think, I knew that team was going to win, but did you really? Hindsight bias makes you believe that you saw it coming, even if the result was a complete surprise. You see, our brains are wired to seek patterns and create narratives that make sense of the world around us. This is a survival mechanism that helps us navigate the complexities of life. However, this can sometimes lead us astray, especially when it comes to recalling past events. Hindsight bias can distort our memory of events, making us remember them as being more predictable than they were. In the process, it can influence our decisions, skewing our judgment and leading us to make less than optimal choices. For instance, in the world of investing, hindsight bias can make us believe that the rise and fall of stock prices were obvious and predictable. This can lead us to make risky investments, thinking we can predict future market trends with the same accuracy. In the realm of learning, hindsight bias can be a barrier. It can make us believe that a concept was easier to understand than it actually was, leading us to underestimate the effort required to learn something new. This is why teachers are often advised to be mindful of hindsight bias when designing lessons and assessments. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I knew it," after an event, pause and reflect. Were you really able to predict the outcome, or is hindsight bias playing tricks on your memory? Hindsight bias, a cognitive shortcut that alters our perception of the past. We've only scratched the surface of the fascinating world of cognitive biases. Today, we delved into the nuances of confirmation bias, availability heuristic, anchoring bias, overconfidence bias, and hindsight bias. But the journey doesn't end here. Stay tuned for the next video where we'll explore more types of biases that influence our thinking and decision-making.